Hey, welcome to Bullock's Rules for Writing. This is the one web series all of America has been waiting for its entire life. Please feel free to applaud. Really? Crickets? Producers. This is episode 0, and you're probably a little bit confused because episodes of things normally have sequential positive integers that go with them. But this is episode 0 because it actually covers something that's really the foundation of everything else that I want to talk about in this series. On this channel, in my classroom, it's the only rule you really need to know. We'll find out right after the theme song. The only rule you really need to know. You're probably thinking, Bullock, you've named this web channel Bullock's Rules for Writing. There's an S, and yeah, there actually are a lot of other rules that we will cover as we go through this, but they all really start in this one place. It's this one very important concept that students sometimes have trouble understanding. So without any further ado, well, maybe a little ado. How about a drum roll? No, a drum. Crickets. Twice in one video? Sorry, my producer is a complete idiot. I'll do it without fanfare. The only rule you need to know is this. Writers write what they write on purpose. Now, that may seem obvious, right? Stephen King doesn't wake up in the morning and stagger towards the bathroom and accidentally there's a new novel. But it's also less obvious because when Stephen King does sit down to write, he thinks about each word he's putting on the page. He thinks about the punctuation in between all of those words. He thinks about the sentences that those words make up and the paragraphs that those sentences make up, to the chapters, to the sections of the book, to the whole thing. He does that on purpose. And sometimes you're not Stephen King. Sometimes you're on your Tumblr talking about why last night's My Crazy Ex-Girlfriend was the best. Or sometimes you're Steven Pinker, where you write a very 800-pagey kind of novel about why violence has declined and how we're actually living in a safer era than we've ever been. But the rule holds true nonetheless. Writers write what they write on purpose. Which means two things. Two corollaries, if you will, to the only rule you need to know. And the first one is that you, out there in YouTube land, in my classroom, wherever it is that you're looking at this, you should write what you write on purpose. Okay? And I'm not saying you've got to turn out 800 pages, but you should actually be thinking about your writing as a thing, and as a thing that you could be doing better. And I know, you're probably all like, Bullock, that's in the classroom, you say. And maybe it's even fine for your fancy-wancy YouTube studio. But is it really true out here in the real world? Well, do you see that billboard behind me? Somebody paid a lot of money to put their message on that billboard, so you'd better believe that they wrote what they wrote on purpose. And I know you can object that advertisers are professionals. You're not a professional. That's a fair point. But even out here in the real world, amateurs write what they write on purpose all the time. Whether it's whatever it is that you put with your duck face pictures on the Snapgrams, or stupid internet memes, or what your racist uncle says on Facebook. I mean, your racist uncle is just like Stephen King in that he doesn't wake up in the morning and accidentally take a dump on your timeline. He sits down, thinks about what he wants to say and how he wants to say it, and then he does it. He writes what he writes on purpose. So you, when your social studies teacher is all like, 5 pages, argle bargle, do you think about what you're going to write? Do you think about what word is going to come after this word and what sentence is going to come after this sentence, what paragraph will come after? Or do you just sit down and start typing and hope that if the font is big enough, you can get to 5 pages and quit? Because if that's your way of writing, your racist uncle is a better writer than you are, and I don't think you want that. Now, I said there were 2 corollaries to the only rule you really need to know. The second one is this. When you read, you should consider the choices that authors have made. If they are writing what they write on purpose, the same way that you should be writing what you write on purpose, it's only fair to them to consider the choices that they have made and analyze those choices for the effects that they're going to have. Could Steven Pinker have not written an 800-page book, but instead made an internet meme? Absolutely. I wouldn't be surprised if he's made lots of internet memes in his free time. He seems like a fun guy. But is that really the best way to make this argument? And the answer, of course, is no. So when you read this, you should read it for the choices he's made. You're probably not actually going to read this for class or ever, but think about the things you do read in class, like poetry. Here's William Carlos Williams, one of my favorites. So much depends upon a red wheelbarrow glazed with rainwater beside the white chickens. It's one of my favorites because it's short and I can still remember it even though I am old. There's a lot to consider. So it is short, even though he tells us right there in the first line that so much depends on this wheelbarrow. Why is the wheelbarrow red? That's not the only possible color. He chose red for a reason. Why are the chickens white? If you've been to a farm, you know that most chickens don't actually come in white. Why rainwater? Why glazed? What is it about that word? What is it that makes rainwater different? You know what? We don't have time for all of that. This is just episode 0. At some point, we will talk about doing a full analysis of a poem like The Red Wheelbarrow or some other William Carlos Williams poem, or poems by other people. Other poets exist. But that's enough for today. That's enough for this episode 0. The only rule you really need to know is that writers write what they write on purpose, which means you should write what you write on purpose. And when you read, you should look for those choices that authors have made and analyze the effects of them. If you can remember that, you're going to do fine. Because that's the only thing you really need to know. I'll see you for the next one.